Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm gonna upload another video today, and today I'm gonna show you guys and I'm gonna tell you guys about transcontinental countries. Now, as you may have known that there is a lot of transcontinental countries. I think the most well-known one is Russia. 25% of Russia's territory is located in Europe, but about 80% of Russia's population lives in Europe. Meanwhile, 75% of Russia's territory is in Asia, but only about 20% of Russia's population lives in Asia. Another well-known transcontinental country is Turkey. The well-known city, known as Istanbul, straddles two continents, making it one of the only transcontinental cities in the world. It spans both Europe and Asia, with the European part of Turkey being called Thrace. However, the European side of Turkey is more economically prosperous, while the Asian side of Turkey is usually poorer. Now, I'm not sure if I'm accurate with that, but it's from my research. Another transcontinental country is Kazakhstan. It has one city that straddles both Europe and Asia. Which is Atiro, which I probably did not pronounce that correctly at all. Wait, hold on. Hold on a second. Alright, I'm back. There was just an error on my tablet that I had to fix. Okay, so there's a city called Atiro, which I most likely did not pronounce right. And it straddles both Europe and Asia. It seems like the Asian side of Atiro is the more urbanized side, while the European part is more rural, and there's not a lot of, skyscrapers. Let's try to think of some more transcontinental countries. A lot of them are, in fact, in the Caucasus. Let's take Georgia, for example. The northern part of Georgia is part of Europe. And even though Georgia is Asian geographically, it is actually considered European culturally. And so is Armenia, even though 0% of its territory is actually located in Europe. Even though a lot of mappers include Armenia as a transcontinental country, even though it's entirely located in Western Asia. Azerbaijan is another example. The northern part of the country, specifically like this area right here, is part of Europe. But the country is culturally and politically Asian, like Turkic. Like, some of the Turkic countries include some of the countries we went over before, like Turkey and Kazakhstan. There's Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan. Most of the Turkic countries are located in Central Asia. Okay, let's move on to Armenia. Armenia is not a transcontinental country, even though I do consider it one because it's culturally and politically European. Because its culture is not really Asian. It's more European. Georgia and Armenia are more European than Asian, even though they're mostly located in Asia. Well, Azerbaijan is more culturally Asian. There's another country on this list, Egypt. Now, you may think that Egypt's not transcontinental right now, but it actually is, obviously, because it owns the North Sinai and South Sinai governorates, which used to be a part of Israel, but in the 1980s they were handed back to Egypt. Israel took the Sinai Peninsula during 1967, but Egypt took it back in 1979. So now Egypt is considered a transcontinental country, even though like 99.5% of Egypt's population lives in Asia, or specifically here. Most Egyptians live like right here, in this very small piece of land. Yemen is another example. Yemen is Asian, but it's really close to Africa. In fact, it has an island known as Socotra that's actually geographically part of Africa. Yemen is separated from Africa with this just one strait known as the Bab al-Mandab Strait, which is really, really small. In fact, I'm going to measure how big it is. Okay, it's about 70,000 feet. How many miles? It's about 13 miles from Africa. The Yemeni mainland is about 18 or 13 miles from Africa, which is really close. Really close. I'm going through a phase where I keep mispronouncing words. Sorry about that. We also could add Spain. Spain has two really small pieces of land in Africa, in which it shares a border with Morocco. Also, which is one of the shortest borders in the world. Ceuta, which, again, I did not pronounce right, is actually part of Spain, even though some may think it's part of Morocco. It's not. And I think there was another territory that Spain had? Or is it just this one territory? Yeah, I really think it's just this one territory that Spain has. What about Portugal? Portugal has a few islands located in North America. In fact, it is one of the only two tri-continental countries, along with another country we'll cover later. Portugal has some islands that are located around North America. Actually, let me measure it. According to my measuring, some of these islands, which are part of Portugal, are actually closer to Europe than they are to North America. So technically, they're either international waters or part of Europe. Okay. So, no, Portugal's in fact not a tri-continental country. But there's one country that's actually tri-continental that we'll cover later. We'll cover it later. Italy, the land of pizza, tiramisu, pasta. This is the Italian region that I'm from, Sicily. My ancestors came from there. And, my dog's ancestors came from Malta. Okay. Italy has two islands that are geographically closer to Africa than they are to Europe nor the Italian mainland. It has 3 islands, which are Linosa, what's this one? Pantelleria, and the most well-known one, Lampedusa. These islands are geographically closer to the African mainland than they are to the Sicilian mainland. So that's why Italy's transcontinental. However, these 3 islands only make up 0.2% of Italy's territory. In mapping videos, mappers often include Italy as a transcontinental country, with about 99.9994, or probably even more, 99.9999998% of Italy is located in Europe. And some people in the comments even say that Italy left the pizza in Libya and Ethiopia. Well, which is obviously a joke. But, alright, let's move on. France. As some of you may know, along with the United Kingdom, these 2 countries have a lot of territories. And probably the last thing that they would want to do is give independence to their overseas territories. I swear, every single time I'm making a mapping video, I always have to fill in territories that are either part of the United Kingdom, France, or the Netherlands. I swear, it's so stressful. And I have to do it every single time that I do a mapping video on Map Chart. Alright, I think I talked a little too much. And I explained a little too much. But that's really my experience from mapping. So yeah, Greece. Greece is a transcontinental country because it has some islands that are really close to Turkey. Well, the Asian part of Turkey. That's the only way I could explain Greece. And it has a lot of islands. I mean, seriously, it has like 8,000 islands. Cyprus. Cyprus is not actually a transcontinental country, even though it is culturally and politically European, being very similar to countries like Greece and Malta. It is geographically Middle Eastern, or just Asian in general. So while it is entirely located in Asia, it has very strong ties with Europe, such as its Greek culture and Orthodox Christianity, or its strong similarities to Greece. Indonesia has, I think it's like a piece of its land called West Papua, which is geographically part of Oceania. Yeah. And it has a few islands that are located in Oceania too. The vast majority of Indonesians, or just Indonesia in general, is located in Asia. In fact, most Indonesians live on this relatively small island called Java, about the same size as Bangladesh or Nepal. This island is home to about 155 million people. That's almost 40% of the entire population of the United States, and more than every single European country, including even Russia. And Russia's like 100 times larger than this tiny island. Yeah. Let's move on. Australia. Australia has a few islands that are geographically Asian. Nothing serious. Yeah. Now let's move on to the most unique country on this list. Chile. Fact, Chile is actually the southernmost country in the world. And South America itself is the southernmost continent in the world, with Africa being a relatively close second. We actually know Oceania is a close second. Africa's a close third. Asia's kind of far. North America's pretty far, and then Europe is like so far. I think it's like the northernmost continent, Europe. Actually, no, North America is the northernmost continent because it's north. Okay. Chile is actually tricontinental. Is this, oh, I thought this was the Galapagos Islands, or Easter Island. Wait, let me search up Easter Island. Oh yeah, so that is Easter Island. Oh yeah, Easter Island is an island that's located in Polynesia, which is part of Oceania. Chile, most of it is located in South America. And when you count its claims over Antarctica, it's technically considered tricontinental. Well, it's really transcontinental, but I like to consider it tricontinental because of its claim in Antarctica. Okay. This is probably the last country we'll cover today. Then I'll make a small part 2 because there are still 2 more countries that I need to go over. The United States. The United States has a lot of territories in Oceania and a few close to Asia. And it also has territories in the Caribbean, like Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands. Yeah, so that's the last country we'll cover today. I'm going to make a small part 2 including Venezuela and Panama. But for now, we're going to end. Bye. I'll see you in the next video.